All right, Shalom, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all the honor, praise, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rachakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who well. Peace and salutations to the elect, scattered abroad. All right, this is the brother by Resolve. Here with a lesson and Lord willing is edifying, right? So today I just wanted to get into a lesson through the Spirit. Just going into... not really sure what the lesson will be entitled, just going into something along the lines of, everything, how everything is falling into play, for Esau to, push this into the W to the O, right? As we know, prophecy is, has been booming, all right? We got the tariff situations, all right, leading to, of course, a famine, right? We got a possible, oncoming famine. All right, you got the blackouts going on in Europe, right? Spain and Portugal, which I actually got an article on that, just diving a little bit into that. All right, we got tensions rising up, through, the nations. All right, coming against Babylon. All right, and, everything is looking, to, the World War III. All right, everything is looking to like the famine is coming soon. The blackouts, coming soon. Okay. So let's get that article. This is the New York Times, right? It says Spain and Portugal look for the cause of widespread blackout. The country's top officials were trying to determine the cause of an outage that left tens of millions of people across the Iberian Peninsula without power. It says 2 days after one of Europe's worst blackouts in decades plunged tens of millions of people across Spain and Portugal into darkness for up to 18 hours, officials from both countries emerged from hours-long meetings and gave little indication publicly that they were any closer to determining the cause. Yeah, because, we believe that there's a very strong possibility that, of course, this was controlled to happen. This was meant to happen, like a little test run, that very well could be the case because, we know that, that's one of the things, of course, that's going to happen, in Jacob's trouble, right? The internet will go out, right? Things will be, people will basically be living off the grid, okay, without internet, without, cell phone service, okay? So like it, without, cell phone service, okay? And it says, we are collecting thousands of data points from the energy system to shed light on what happened. Sarah Agassiz, one of Spain's vice presidents, and at a news conference on Wednesday after Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez of Spain held 2 meetings with senior officials in Madrid, she added, "We don't know the cause, which is why the investigation is essential. Neither the Spanish nor Portuguese government has publicly speculated on the cause of the blackout, which began on Monday afternoon, leaving hospitals running on generators, trains halted, and the supermarkets shut. Electricity was fully restored by Tuesday morning. Parts of France were also briefly affected. On Wednesday morning, Mr. Sanchez met with National Security Council officials and then with the Council of Ministers at Moncloa Palace, the Prime Minister's residence in Madrid, to discuss the outage. All right. So you got these, power outages happening, and people are, bugging out, losing their minds, man. All right, and we know, how much nowadays that society depends on, electricity, right? People ain't gonna be able to function with their day-to-day lives, without it. Like for example, a lot of people have electric stoves nowadays, right? Refrigeration. And if a blackout happens, the electricity goes out, man. That's going to be a big thing with the famine too, because refrigerated foods, will eventually go bad. So it's a lot that comes into play, when you think about these blackouts, man. People ain't gonna have social media, right? We seen how people acted, with TikTok, and that's just, one social site that these people use every day, and we see how they was bugging out with it, man. All right, but with a whole blackout, a nationwide blackout, man, it's gonna be famines, man. People gonna lose it. All right, people ain't gonna know what to do. All right, a lot of things, people doing their day-to-day lives, they won't be able to do. All right. So this is the book of 2 Ezra 9:1. It says, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. You see? And we see in the signs, man. All right. And we know that, the Lord, this all has to happen in order for the Lord to, to come back. All right. And execute that ultimate judgment, what's going to be the missiles, and also establish, that righteous kingdom, starting with the elect, of Israel. Okay. And, these people are meanwhile, these people are, on cruise control, right? They more worried about, the Twitter twins, or Twitter trends, Salakia, Twitter trends, and, social media distractions. You got the Shannon Sharp situation. The biggest thing right now, man, is the, can one gorilla defeat 100 men, right? This is the type of folly, that these people are focused on, man. They ain't worried about, if they're gonna have food in the next, few weeks, with what's going on, right? These people are completely, distracted, completely asleep, completely oblivious to what's actually going on here, man. What Esau is actually trying to do. All right. That chaos, that Esau needs to happen for him to push this NWO. All right. Everything is falling into play. Okay. It's even, Trump even has, martial law, coming in soon, to establish, certain laws that, he put in place, to enforce them. All right. So we seeing everything come into play. All right. The economy crashing, right? For that digital system. All right. And through all these problems that, is going to be. All right. Salakia, I got, disturbed. All right. But, yeah, just going into, we'll read it again. 2 Ezra 9:1. He answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. Yeah, and we seeing those times, man. All right, or those signs, man. The Lord is coming, all right, to execute judgment and establish that righteous kingdom, and to save his elect. Right, because the kingdom, of course, the rulership in the kingdom, will start with the elect, being those in, in rulership. All right, and the other nations, will have to fall in line, be servants, be slaves, the elect. All right. Verse 3, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, then shalt thou will understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days which were before thee, even from the beginning. Yeah, because these, different prophecies, it's certain prophecies even in Genesis, that haven't happened yet. All right, so these different prophecies, throughout the Bible, man, that was given to the prophets of old. Some of these prophecies, right? The prophets didn't know. They weren't sure exactly what they meant. But of course, today, those prophets being back, right? Those prophets of old being back today, we understand, what these prophecies mean through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. All right. Of course, this is the time that, we will read and, we will get it. Okay. And we seeing, reading verse 3, therefore when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, and we're seeing that. All right. You got the, people protesting against ICE, right? People protesting against Trump. All right. Those that, may still be with Trump. All right. You got, of course, these people that's pro Lil Hat, these people that's pro Palestine, right? So we're seeing uproars of the people. We're seeing a division in this place. Okay. And this all needs to happen, in order for, the chaos to happen, right? For the fall of this kingdom. All right. Scriptures go into a kingdom divided against itself shall not stand. And we seeing that. All right. Matthew 16:3, and in the morning it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowering. O ye hypocrites, ye can discern the face of the sky, but can ye not discern the signs of the times? Yeah, and we at the end, and we not just at the end, we at the end of the end, man. All right, and we can see that this place don't got 1,000 years left, right? Hundreds of years left, right? We at the end, man. All right. And that's the type of spirit, and that's the type of spirit we in, man. Because we in the spirit that, this place got potentially got 1,000 years. You could be slack, lackadaisical. All right, not going as hard as you should, man. Because, we under the impression that, the Lord could come back any day now, man. All right, who knows, what could happen by the end of this year, man. By next year, man. Romans 13:11, and that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. You see, nearer than when we believed. Okay, so now ain't the time to be playing games. All right, falling out of the truth. Okay, making up 100 different breakdowns of the MOTB. To be, caught up in some type of scandal, being exposed and, catching that type of junk. Now is the time to be serious. All right. Really get right with Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. Pray that the Lord put the right spirit within us, because everything is falling into play, for this kingdom to go down, man. And we don't want to be caught up, in the judgment, that the unbelievers gonna have to partake in, man. Which is going to, of course, be that unhonorable death. All right, whether it's through the sword, through famine, all right, or they're preserved to the missiles, And we have that fear of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, man. Something that these people lack. Okay. This is 1 Thessalonians 5:1, but at the times and seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. And yeah, that's the whole point. The day of the Lord comes like a thief in the night. So when the Lord, makes his return, when the doors of repentance is closed, all right, when the famine of the word hits, we want to make sure that we in good standing with Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, because no man knows the day or the time, when all hell will break loose. We can speculate through the spirit. We know that it's going to be sooner than later, right? Through the spirit and the power of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. So that's why, we have to be ready at all times. We have to be circumspect, all right? Keep watch of the prophecies. The prophets are also known as the watchmen as well, okay? Watching for the signs and the times of the Lord's return, and giving out, that warning, okay? Verse 3, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. Yeah. And, you know, these people are, you know, too attached to this society, you know, too dependent on this society. Okay. You know, they haven't, you know, detached themselves. All right. You know, people are attached to, you know, their phones, you know, the Instagram, you know, TikTok, you know, to their jobs. All right. You know, their families. All right. You know, whatever the case may be that Esau could use against you. All right. In order for you to fall in line, you know, to take that MOTB, you know, and you know, people are too accustomed to the conveniences of the society. You know, you got people that's too damn comfortable. And, you know, in order to get that, you know, that being comfortable, that feeling of being comfortable back, all right, you know, they're going to do whatever this man tell them to do, all right, which we know that, you know, his main goal, of course, is to give everybody the you know, the C-hip, the MOTB, all right. However, you know, the you know, the elect is going to be good because we choosing to come against this place. All right, you know, we're gonna have that faith, you know, Lord's will to overcome, you know, till the end. Okay, you know, not take the MOTB. All right, you know, be delivered by the Lord. You know, get that spiritual power, right? Because we believe in those things. Okay, you know, this ain't just a trend, you know, just a hangout thing. No, this is who we are. This is a heritage. This is our faith. All right. You know, this is us coming back to, you know, the one and only true power, Yahweh Shai. Okay. But, you know, that's the lesson, you know, Lord willing, is edifying. So with that, I like to give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Baruch HaKodesh.
1 Thessalonians